Welcome to the Unorthodox Horse Biscuits podcast, Jason. I'm glad
Yeah,
that
thanks
you
for having
came
me,
to
man.
do mine because I thought Hell Raising Horror Week was fucking awesome.
Hair raising, not hell raising.
Hair raising. That's what I said,
There you
right?
go. You finally, one of these times, you made the blooper reel for Patreon. It was
Yeah.
really funny.
Yeah, that was fun. I
Yeah,
made the blooper reel on Patreon.
yeah. Just when you messed it up the first time,
That's great.
it was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
Um, so yeah, that was awesome. It made like it gave me something to look forward to like the whole time I was like all of Halloween week and just listening to everybody's like paranormal accounts and the Bigfoot guy, he's like, I've never seen one, but like I've chased them my whole life. And I was like, that sounds like a paranormal investigation to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And
There's
then
this kind of consensus among us that it seems to only happen to the people who aren't looking for it.
yeah.
And the people who say they go out and they find a Bigfoot every time they go out are probably on Discovery Plus.
So they have a show, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. It was good. I enjoy it, and I really hope you're gonna do it again next year. Like, I
Oh yeah.
like I I like the fact that you ended it with Geraldine.
Yeah.
You know, that was really cool.
I wanted to bookend it with Kentucky Goblins. So I started with your goblin story and then ended it with Geraldine's, and I thought it was a good way to kind of theme it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was awesome, man. So I just want to tell you I loved it, and I think you should do more of like that. That
Thanks.
was so fun.
It's a lot of work. I do it all the time, but damn.
I know. Well, I mean, like I haven't done a podcast since last Christmas with Lemon Juice McGee. He runs the Comic Cavalcade downtown,
Yep.
and uh, I've just been so busy, and like I've been rearranging my studio from like more of like a film space to a maker space, because of all the stuff I make, and like I said to you before, I'm making props for not Jason, but Kevin and Jessica for a short film and
Yep.
stuff coming up. And then doing like terrain builds and all kinds of stuff like that. So like it's been a while since I've just been able to sit down like face to face with somebody and just talk. And for Horse Biscuits, you're the first like internet call. Like this is the first time I've ever done like a Skype one. So,
Yeah, it's awesome, man. It
but
worked
it's
out really well because I was
yeah, it
supposed to be
does.
interviewing somebody else tonight, and they had to reschedule last minute. So I'm like,
It's
well,
wow.
I don't really know what I'm gonna do. I don't like to unschedule my time because I'm so like over scheduled, and I really wanted to do something, but I didn't know what. And then yeah,
Yeah.
you hit me up, and here we are.
Well, sorry for getting started so late, man. I apologize.
Oh no, it's perfect, perfect.
Uh, well, anyways, I think it's a good coincidence that both like me wanting to do a podcast this weekend, you just so happening to have a slot open. Like I think that worked out great. Because I'm gonna get slightly hammered, and I want you to indulge me, if you will, in what Etidorfa is and what it is to you, and like why your investigations and shit led you to Kentucky. Just if you don't care.
Oh yeah, it's a long story.
Well, I mean,
So
if that's fine. I got all the time in the world. I just kind of, I don't know what it is. You've mentioned it to me before, and I'm like, yeah, I know you like that's such a big part of your life, but like, and you said something about the ends of the earth, and I'm just not real sure. So if you could, bring me up to speed with it a little bit.
sure, sure. So I'll try to do the abridged version and I'll skip most of the book
Yeah.
because it's all right. So obviously, the book is regarded as science fiction. Okay. But there's a lot of truth that's hidden in it. And it made me question whether or not all of it's true. And I'm still kind of on the fence of that. But we'll get into that as we go. So the book starts roughly, there's this guy. He gets a letter in the mail. It's in this wrinkled up, old, ratty envelope. And it says, what you need to do is infiltrate this secret society and expose all of their secrets. It doesn't say who. The guy never says his name. He just knows that he's gotten this old ratty envelope. That means other people have gotten it and not done what it said. So he decides to do it. And he infiltrates the secret society. He writes this book, and the people from this group find out. They burn down the printing press where the book is being held. And there's a cool tie into Somerset with that too. Um, I'm not the best at it. Nathan is the one to tell that part. Basically, there was an in real life. Uh, there's another book. It was like a cookbook or something that was supposed to come out at the same time, and it was also burned in that fire. So when the cookbook finally came out, the woman who wrote it donated a bunch of money or something to get Edidorba or to get the actual book printed, or it may have been Edidorba. I don't remember which. Again,
Yeah.
Nathan Isaac is the guy. He's the one who filled me in on all of that. But then that woman, I think she lived in Somerset, and there was some tie-in to that Civil War monument down there somewhere.
Oh yeah,
Zollikofer, I think.
Zollikofer. Yep, that's it.
So it was something to do with that, and I'm sorry I don't remember that whole story. I'll have to go back and find it, and I can send it to you, when we're done or whatever.
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
fine.
so the guy gets arrested over a fine of like $2 and odd change, and these people from this group break him out of prison, and he's put into this carriage with somebody else in the back who doesn't talk, and they take him up to Niagara. Backtrack, he's from Batavia, New York, and Niagara is, however long of a carriage ride. It's, north. And so he gets there, realizes this other dude that's with him in the carriage is a corpse.
What the fuck?
And they dump the corpse into the river wearing this guy's clothes. And they lock this guy up. Some point during his being held here, this guy comes in, rubs him down with this mysterious ointment, and he's aged. He's aged to an old man, and
Wow.
he thinks that people will still know. So the guy agrees. He's like, I'll take you to your hometown and I'll show you whatever you want and let anybody that you want see you, and no one's going to recognize you. So they go, and no one recognizes him. They think he's crazy. So this guy that has oiled him up, so to speak, uh, they go on a journey, man. They go down to Cincinnati, and they get on a steamboat, and they ride to Smithland, Kentucky. This is where I'm going to stop with the narrative and backtrack.
Okay.
So in real life, this all happened save for the oiling up, right? There's no factual proof that that ever happened or that
Right.
that's even possible.
Yeah.
But this guy's name is William Morgan, and he exposed the Freemasons, which was a really big deal back in the like 1820s. And the book really exists. I tried to read it. It's hard to read, very hard to read. And yeah, he gets arrested, he gets locked up, he disappears, and they find this body, and it's wearing his clothes. And the wife says, it's his clothes, but I don't think that's him.
The fuck.
And they're like, well, it's got his clothes, it's got to be him. They bury him. They say this is William Morgan. At this time, some woman from Canada comes forward, and she says, that's my husband who disappeared a few months ago. So they dig the body up, they exhume him, and they claim, well, this is the husband. But there's still this huge monument, right? Because the Freemasons are suspected of this murder because of the book. And they actually stand guard at this monument for I don't know how long, months, maybe years, because they're afraid that if someone shows up, desecrates the monument, they're going to get that blame again.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is there's an entire political movement and a political party that's formed that's called the Anti-Masonic Party. And it was huge for a little while. You know, back in the 1800s, Freemasonry, there were a lot of presidents that were Freemasons and, you know, arguably still have been into modern day. But this was a big one because the people were like, look, this is what these people are doing. They're kidnapping people, they're killing people. Like, we can't have this in our government, right?
Yeah.
So that disappears after a while. Eventually, the Freemasons stopped guarding this monument. Is it William Morgan that's buried there? You know, who knows? Who can say? I mean, at this point, we'll never know. But
But the
what the
dude
book
disappeared, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. What the book does is gives kind of, you know, this is a possibility. Maybe this is what happened. An interesting thing is in this book, we'll flash back to the narrative here. They don't mention names, they don't tell the town, they describe the town. And when you look at the description of the town, it matches Batavia, right? And they don't say, yeah, they never say the guy's name. They don't say the names of any of the people involved until they get to Smithland. So when they get to Smithland, for whatever, it plainly says, we landed in Smithland and we stayed at the home of Joseph Watts.
No shit.
So what did I do? I looked up Joseph Watts, Smithland, Kentucky. Guess what?
What?
He was real, and the
Holy
time
shit.
is real. Um, and he's buried in Smithland, Kentucky. I've been
Oh
to
my
his
god.
grave twice, and I was like, "This is really nuts." But
Yeah, that
what's
is
really,
nuts.
really nuts is I had a crazy experience in Smithland, Kentucky a long time ago before I was into any of this, before I knew that the book existed. I don't know if you know that story or not, but I can share it for the podcast if you
I would
want.
love for you to share it.
So this is kind of the basis of the documentary that I'm working on.
Okay.
So,
Sneak peeks here.
it, yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of in the teaser, I think, and I've told it on a couple of other shows, but
Yeah.
it's an ever evolving situation, you know, something like this would be. But in like 2001, I was really heavy into astral projection, lucid dreaming. That was kind of my focus. I wasn't really into, you know, the stuff I am now. Let's put it that way. Wasn't into magic, wasn't into ghosts, really, UFOs, you know, all the good stuff that's consumed my life at this point, I think. But so that's what I was doing. You know, I was reading everything I could find. I was a junior in high school, and I had a girlfriend. I had a lucid dream one night. My girlfriend and I, we were flying around in Southern Illinois, which is my favorite place in the world. Beautiful. Shawnee Forest is amazing. I've been there a lot. I go back all the time, and I always will. But we're flying around, and we cross the river, which is the Ohio River. I didn't think about that at the time. I've been to Kentucky like twice in my life at this point. Never thought about it. We fly across the river, and we land on the other side in front of this big white house. It's kind of like a creamy yellowish white house. And I remember the visuals from this, man, like it won't go out of my brain. It burned in there because it was one of those really, I call them like big dreams. Like there's
Yeah.
regular dreams, and then there's like these big dreams that seem to
Yeah.
linger. And we land in the front of this house. It sticks out. The town is run down, but this house is super nice. There's this like huge iron fence and a nice gate. It's right on the river. We walk up to the river, and there's these dead gar laying on the bank. I woke up. I thought, well, I have no idea what that is. You know, cool dream. You know, I was just happy I had a lucid dream like on purpose.
That's pretty cool.
So, yeah, 2 years later, my buddies and I decide we're going to go down to Southern Illinois. We're going to hike all day, go see some stuff. They had never been there. I've been there a lot, you know, and we ran out of things to do. And I remembered one time going to the Smithland Lock and Dam on the Ohio. From the Illinois side, there used to be a visitor center, and there might be now. I haven't looked into that. But we get to where the road is supposed to be, and it's not there. It's all tore up. I don't know if they're redoing it or if it was closed or what. So this is 2003, 2004. Cell phones aren't a thing really. GPS basically doesn't exist on the consumer level. So we
Yeah.
pull out the road atlas and we're like, well, let's just cross the river, go to the Kentucky side, see if we can see it. And we did. We double back, took the ferry at Cave in Rock, and came down to Kentucky. We pull into this town, Smithland, Kentucky. We figured Smithland Lock and Dam, Smithland, Kentucky, probably our best bet, right?
Yep.
So we pull in there and we park the car. I'm in the back seat because I'm the biggest dude. Like I all spread out, super hot. And I get out of the car and I look up and there's the house I had the fucking dream about.
No
And
shit. Right
I was
there.
like in shock right there.
What the fuck?
So I didn't say anything. I was just kind of absorbing the situation. And we walk up to the river. We're watching this barge go by. My friend Paul is up ahead of us, and he all of a sudden he goes, "Hey guys, come here and look at this." And we walk up, and there's all these gar dead
Oh,
on the
no way. On the bank.
yeah, and that is all in Smithland, Kentucky. So I'm watching Hellier. We'll flash forward now to like 2019, and I make it. Season 2 dives a little bit into Edidorpa, and so I'm like, well, I'm going to read this book. They don't really talk about it too much, but it's enough that it piqued my interest. I'm like, I'm going to read this book. So I start
Yeah.
reading the book, but I hadn't made it very far when Greg and Dana Newkirk made a post on their Patreon with pictures from their version of the book that they have. And there's a map there in these pictures, and it's all like labeled, like numbers, and then there's a key at the bottom. Number 1 is this. Well, number 2 is fucking Smithland, Kentucky. And I'm like, what the hell?
What the fuck?
Like, no one knows that this place exists. It's this rundown little old river town. Like, once upon a time, it was a big deal, but it's not anymore. I love it. No offense if you're watching this and you live in Smithland, Kentucky. I love your town, man. I love it. And yeah, but I'm like, why is Smithland on this map? So I hurry up, get back into the book. Yeah, it turns out that's why it's there, because that's where they landed. So they stay the night with Joseph Watts, who's a real damn person,
Yeah.
and he was living there at the time, which is bizarre. And they leave the next day. They cross the Cumberland River. The guide that he's with zigzags him all across this back country, and finally he's had enough. He's like, man, we're stopped here. There's this pipe laying here. I'm gonna pick it up. I'm gonna brain this dude, and I'm gonna get away. Like, I'm done. And he picks up the pipe, goes to swing it at this guy when he turns his back, and it's grabbed from behind, and he
Oh,
turns and there's this white fleshed weird humanoid thing that is the size and shape of a human being, has no eyes, grabs the pipe from him, super strong. And the guy who had taken him there says, this is where I'm leaving you, and go with him, you're going to go down to the hollow earth.
fuck that.
Right. So there are illustrations in this book by J. Augustus Knapp, and he's an amazing illustrator. I love every single one of them. I'd like to have like giant versions of them just framed up back here.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, but this thing is crazy, crazy looking. And the
Hang on.
image,
So
yeah.
was it like the tall whites almost, like anything like they're described?
Well, other than having no eyes, I guess. I mean, did the tall whites have eyes? I watched that documentary, but I don't remember.
They were like, well, I read the book, cause that feller that talks about it that worked at the base, he like wrote a book and I had it on audio book. um, and he talked about like them being so bright and like pale that like sometimes when they were in the sun or something, he couldn't, or in like light that reflected, he couldn't really see their faces.
Hmm.
But they had names and they talked. But also
Yeah, yeah.
like, I'm just wondering if like that was like kind of like the same species or something like that.
Have you seen the illustration?
No, I haven't. Please do show.
Oh, yeah. Give me a second. Well, from the cover, I mean, that's pretty close to what you're describing. There might be a glare
Yeah,
here.
yeah, no, yeah, that looks like what the tall whites look like, kind of like that.
Yeah,
Like something like from Prometheus.
yeah, kind of. Sure.
Uh,
Um,
you can
I
look
have a
for that
crappy version of this book, but
and just give me a second because I think Mike
yeah,
turned my heaters off and my ass is freezing.
yeah. So my copy of the book is crap. It's one of the like, it came out in the 1800s, so anybody can, release another version of it.
Yeah,
Uh, that's just the one I have, and the pictures are super small and just badly printed. Anyway, um, so here's where I am. This guy, the story of the guy anyway, is true, and Joseph Watts is also real. So what if he really did go there and he really did go into the hollow earth and meet this goddess who was beautiful and alluring and tried to seduce him, whose name is Edidorpa, which is Aphrodite backwards. And I'm
oh
pretty
shit.
sure Aphrodite and Venus are like equivalents, right? And you
Yeah,
go back to all of the contactee cases from, the mid 1900s, and it's all Venusians. It's all these beautiful women from Venus. And that's kind of weird because, it
it's kind of
predates
weird.
that, but it's the same story. And so if all those things are true, is this entrance true? And why do I feel so drawn to the story? Why did I have the experience that I had in Smithland only to later find all this stuff? And I decided I was going to grab a camera and I'm going to go and I'm going to look into it, right?
Fuck yeah.
And
That's what we do.
yeah, do I believe in the hollow earth theory? You know, logically, I have to say I don't. I think they'd lock me up if I came out in public and was like, "Oh, the Earth is hollow and people live there, and there's all this crazy shit that happens in there." Um, so yeah, I can't say for sure, but here's the deal: if it is real and this story really did happen, I've been there because I'm pretty confident that I found the place based on the illustrations, the descriptions of the area. I won't say where it is just because it's on private property. Um, I
That's
I went,
smart.
I introduced myself to the owners. Uh, they let me go down, film
Did
it.
they have anything to say about like? Did you tell them anything like, "Hey, I think this is where the entrance to Hollow Earth is, and there's shiny white demons coming out of the cave systems"? Like,
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I feel like I made the right decision by not taking that approach. Um, there's a good story though with that interaction that I'll have to tell you off the record because
okay,
yeah, I mean, I don't want to divulge too much information,
yeah,
but there's a really really interesting feature to this where the name of this place also ties into everything that's going on with the ongoing Pennyroyal Hellier Kentucky thing. And I have to leave it at that because I don't want anyone to go there and bother these people. They're super nice. They were super friendly to me, but at the same
yeah.
time, they live in rural Western Kentucky where the nearest house is like 6 miles away. They, they were nice to me and they'd probably be nice to anybody who showed up,
Oh, guaranteed.
but I don't want to be responsible for that.
Yeah,
And I don't want
exactly.
it to come back on me. Like, have people showing up to see the Hollow Earth entrance when these people are just living their lives there, you know?
Here's what's weird. Um, so it's so odd that this ends up being like something about Hollow Earth because literally, like, is a dog hair from my dog. um, it's so weird, man, because like for the past week and a half or more, I've been like thinking more and more and more about that Hollow Earth theory.
Yeah.
And like, you know, with the submarine that hit the unidentified object in the water, right?
Hmm.
And all these videos of like these UFOs or whatever they call them now.
UAPs.
Yeah, UAPs.
I
Like
don't use that. They're
just
UFOs.
just submerging into the ocean, just disappearing. And like my experience with the goblins, right? And
Mhm.
like this story about this dude getting taken down
Yeah.
into Hollow Earth, like it just makes it like I don't know more attractive to me
Yeah.
because like it's an easy way to like disappear for things. Like I
Oh
was
yeah.
talking to my wife earlier, and I was like earlier this week, and I was like, it would be crazy if like just think about it, like maybe in Hollow Earth there's like extremely like sophisticated like reptilian beings and like they have like extreme technologies because they have like deep minerals that we can't even access yet, and they know how to manipulate gravity because they're closer to the core. And like what if if the core is burning so bright it could be bright enough to give like sunlight down there. And so part of them being subterranean is that they live in the ground except upside down. you know and I'm just like there's like a lot of things that point towards like it could be real, and that's creepy as shit, but at the same time like I almost wish that were real because that new Godzilla and King Kong movie that recently
Yeah,
came
yeah,
out.
that's pretty cool, right? I was
They
so
did
surprised by the Hollow Earth angle on that. Yeah.
yeah, they depicted that really well, I thought. Like
Hmm.
that's where the dinosaurs and like all kinds of weird creatures and shit would live. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, I really liked it. And I really like thinking about Hollow Earth and stuff. But anyways, I was just saying it's just crazy that,
Yeah.
this all ties into being a Hollow Earth thing.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was never something one that I even knew existed, let alone ever gave any credence to. Like it's not one of the popular alternative theories to
Right.
reality. There's the growing flat earther group, as special as they are. Um, you can you don't have to disprove them because they disprove themselves every time you
Yeah.
put a video out. But Hollow Earth was something that was new to me, and I think you should look into this book to kind of there's a lot of the explanations scientifically for how all of this happens, and I think you'd enjoy that aspect of it. For example, you had mentioned the core burning so bright that they didn't need a sun.
Yeah.
Really, the way they describe it in Edidorpa is that the sun still shines through the earth, and by some sort of like transient radiation they have dim light, and because you're so far down and into the dark, that dim light is enough for you to see everything.
Well, it'd be ultraviolet.
Well, I mean, there's more to it than that, as explained in this book anyway.
Yeah, I could understand like especially in places like this. Like let's just theorize for a second, okay? And say that
Right.
like these UV lights, these long red bands from the sun, that we can't see with the naked eye are penetrating the earth, where in areas with like large crystal formations, their prisms are much brighter. That would probably attract, subterranean hollow earth beings.
Yeah,
Maybe.
definitely possible
Maybe
if
that's
they.
why like here, like Somerset, Kentucky, and like Sedona, Arizona, and like where the Skinwalker Ranch and shit is. Like maybe that's why there's so much paranormal activity there. Is because the UV bands going through the Earth in these uh crystalline, prisms
Yeah,
attract things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's physical, scientifically accepted proof, that quartz especially has all these properties related to energy, right? I mean, with the piezoelectric effect, you have crystals being supercharged and emitting energy, like the thin little speakers in all of these electronics and things, watches, quartz is integral to their operation. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't discount the possibility that it would draw something like that in. I mean, if it, again, if there's people living underground, right? Like, and another thing that I want to point out, and it was something that you kind of addressed with like the reptilian thing, you have to be really careful when talking about Hollow Earth and underground as it relates to the QAnon shit,
Oh yeah.
because one of the foremost sources of information for Hollow Earth things, I'm not even going to say his name. Uh, he he actually wrote a book, um, published by Gray Barker of all people. It's called Valiant Thor's Guide to the Inner Earth. That's a collection at the time that it came out of all printed references to Hollow Earth, to Earth entrances, all this stuff. He's evolved that book into a website now that has greatly expanded on it, and there's millions and millions of stories and things, including my own now because it's been published on my website. Um, but he is deeply into the QAnon shit, and
Really.
yeah, and the people that read into it are going to find him first, and they're going to see that shit, and then you're automatically walking around with a target on you, for being a political nut job. So
Well,
you have to be careful referencing Hollow Earth and referencing reptilians in the Hollow Earth, because that's just
I just
fish
threw
in
them
the
both
barrel.
into the algorithm, right?
Yeah, it's a bad time. You don't want to get wrapped up in that.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. They come to Podunk, Kentucky. They're gonna have to fight the end of a rifle to get to me. So
Yeah, well, the problem is that the people that live in these rural areas are the people who are like, yeah, that's probably fucking true. Yeah, come to
that's me, man. I'm like, it's probably true. Like, I was thinking about it. Just like around Halloween time and around like when it gets cold for some reason. I don't know. It's always kind of been this way for me, but anytime it gets cold, like that's normally like when me and my buddies and like my interest in like paranormal and like searching for things heightens. I don't know why. I
yeah,
guess because like after Turkey Day and Big Fat Man Day, there's really nothing to do for a
yeah,
good stretch of time because it's so cold.
right.
And so maybe my interest gets drawn to it by that, but I was trying to correlate like a connection with how the Appalachian Mountain Range was formed before Pangea was formed,
Yeah,
because there were two great continents before the Pangea that
hmm,
collided, and this mountain range was one of the first to be formed after the Earth finally cooled. Um, and I was thinking about that erosion and stuff, right? And like all the strange, like weird, like wives' tales, and like just like all this strange stuff. There's this book that my buddy Mike bought for me. It's called The Cold Cold Hand. Have you ever heard of it?
no,
It's really good. It's almost like a children's like bedtime book, but like if you were like 6 years old and reading that and you weren't super into it, it'd probably give you some nightmares. But it's literally like the whole book is just these tales from like New York and Maine all the way down to like Georgia, right?
okay,
Just the whole Appalachian Aragonian or Aragonian mountain range.
yeah,
And um things like that. Like I was trying to tie in like maybe because like all the erosion in from the mountain range being so old and stuff and like magic disappearing and reappearing in the world and stuff like that. Like if you looked at it over time, you know, if there was a hollow earth, we'll just call it H Earth. That way, they don't come after us. Um, if there was an H Earth, then like this would be a really easily like a penetration point, like easy access for them
Oh yeah, I
because
mean, look at the geological aspects of that entire area. I mean, the cave systems, Lord, the cave systems are just enormous, right? They're
yeah,
massive, and there's a million entrances into them, and all the time they're finding new sections. It wasn't that long ago, like earlier this year, they found some big, huge, multi-mile stretch of the Mammoth Cave system, and who knows what all these small little branches lead to and where they open up. I mean, Nathan and Pennyroyal talked about Crowley whenever he visited the US on his little mission to infiltrate all of the Freemason lodges on his own, right?
yeah.
uh, he went to the Mammoth Cave system. It's a draw to people of the magical persuasion, we'll say. And also, like, there's a folkloric down home Appalachian magic system that has never stopped. There's people that grew up back in the day along the Appalachian Mountains. Man, it was real to them. It never died, and it probably won't. And people that still practice this, they believe in it wholeheartedly. And yeah, it's an important aspect to look at because there's just something about this place, this ancient energy that people have been drawn to forever.
But my question is like, why is like the Cumberland Valley, which is Kentucky, like why is it more than anywhere else? It doesn't make sense to me. Like we drop off from a plateau in Missouri, right?
Yeah.
And like you get some decent flat land, over towards, well, pretty much directly south of you in Kentucky. It's
Yeah.
decently flat over there. And then you get literally like 30 minutes, west of me, it starts getting really hilly. And then the farther east you go, it gets incredibly hilly. And then as soon as you drop through the Cumberland Gap, it's like just wavy hills rolling to the coast again. Like I don't
Yeah.
understand because and when same thing when you go down south down 27, you know, you go through the mountain range and then you drop off, and come up another plateau on the other side of a lake, and then like South Tennessee is just flat as shit until you get to Georgia. Like
Right.
it's like this dip, like
Yeah. I mean,
basically.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not an ancient, geologist or geology expert. I'm sure there's some explanation as to why the area is how it is.
It's the Great
I'm
Big
not a
Valley.
big,
That's what it
yeah,
is.
yeah, Valley, Littlefoot, eat your
Yeah.
cheese, shut up.
Yeah, it's the Great Big Valley, I think. No, that's always something that's kind of interested in me is like, yeah,
Oh yeah,
there you can go other places and find like a lot of paranormal stuff, and there's a lot of creepy places in the world, but like maybe it's because I live here, but it seems like really, with goblins, Hopkinsville, here, like Bigfoot sightings, people around the country say that like Stearns, Kentucky is like one of the absolute hot spots for Bigfoot sightings.
yeah,
And
yeah.
we actually went camping down there like a couple years ago, and there was like a whole group of people from like Alabama and Florida and Colorado and California. Yeah, excuse me.
Well, 'cause
But yeah, there was like all there just to hunt Bigfoot, just like 27 minutes south of us. And I don't know. It's just always kind of been weird to me why this area is so increased with like its cave systems and stuff. Like Mammoth Cave being one of the biggest cave systems in the world. So that that's bonkers.
yeah, it really is. I mean, how old? How long has that been that way? How old
I'd
is
say,
that cave system? Ancient, forever ago.
yeah,
And with the courts also, I mean, I feel like it's one of those places where the recipe is just right for some shit to happen, And I'm working on this theory that paranormal occurrences of all kinds are based on some sort of recipe. It's a geographical and geological aspect. It's what this energy that exists is able to pull from you to present itself with. and also, solar activity and mood and all these things that if it's just right or just kind of right, you're going to see something or experience something. And I think maybe, I had a recent experience in a Civil War cemetery, up here by me, that is known for uh, free floating illuminated balls of light, right? Not orbs that show up on a camera, but like lights floating around that you can see. And it's also really near a place where a good friend of mine had a Bigfoot encounter, like 5 miles away.
That's
It's
cool.
along a river. And so we decided we'd go there, one night a couple months ago. And sorry, my dog's barking. I don't know if you picked that up or not.
I
Um,
can't hear shit,
we
man.
Awesome. So I was like, well, man, let's go check this place out. There's all these different kinds of activity. There's also supposedly, ghost activity there or
Yeah.
spirit activity. And maybe we'll get something because it's just like it's a goodie bag, like it's a paranormal goodie bag.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah,
I'd be
so
into it.
we were hearing all these big crashes between the cemetery and the river, which was like, like maybe a mile and a half away. And so, could that have been Bigfoot? Yeah, maybe. And then we heard like this breathing coming from the edge of the woods. Could that have been Bigfoot? Yeah, maybe. Um, and when I decided to play a Civil War song in this Civil War cemetery, I played Hell on the Wabash because I live, basically on the Wabash River. Um, we're looking around, nothing going on. Look up in the sky, and there's a damn UFO that flies right over us. And I switched to my air traffic app really fast to see, like, am I just seeing a really fast plane or what? As I'm looking at it, and I see the closest plane is 45 miles away and it's going the opposite direction. My friend says, "Hey, it's flashing." Oh, never mind, it's gone. And I look up and yeah, it's totally gone. And
Awesome.
I was like, well, shit. So, also I saw one of those balls of light. I thought somebody was shining like a Dollar General flashlight at my car.
What the
Like,
fuck?
the bulb kind of lights up the casing a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like an
So I
orb.
see this orange light like moving around by the road. There's a tree line. And I
Yeah.
was like, somebody's looking in my car. We head over there and it was gone and there was no sign of anybody. So there's all this crazy stuff that happened. And I don't think all these things are different, man. I think it's just there's this thing that manifests however it's going to manifest by whatever rules it follows, if it even follows any, if it
Yeah.
just goes by what's available to pull from. We had all these expectations of possibilities, right? And damn if we didn't get most of them. Like we didn't have a ghost, but we got everything else, I think. I'm pretty confident.
I'd say, that ball, that orb, that was probably your ghost right there.
Well, I thought that too until I talked to Stan Gordon for Hair Raising Horror Week. And he's telling me all these crazy stories about these independent balls of light moving through walls and shit and chasing people and all this cool stuff that I'd never heard of before. And he calls them mini UFOs.
Huh.
So, maybe
Maybe
it's
that's what
something like that too.
maybe that's what fairies are. Maybe they're just like the little people that come from H Earth. They
Back
fly
to the
around
H. Yeah.
they fly
Well, I
around
mean,
the orbs.
that's another aspect of it, man. All the Fae sightings and Fae experiences. And I also think that there's a very large percentage of these contactee and abduction experiences that people have that is a non-physical. And there's a mental or astral uh, layer. I don't think these contactees from the 60s and all that were going to Venus, like obviously because they would die. Venus is hot.
Yeah.
And but to them it was super real, and I think that a lot of that happens in their mind. And if it's real to them, does it count as being real? I don't know. That's a philosophical discussion for another day. But there's definitely a non-physical aspect to this stuff, and if it can create these memories in your head that this is what happened, could it not also create something tangible in the physical realm that, that we can see and we can interact with, like a Bigfoot or a ghost or a UFO, or a fairy for that matter, or a goblin, you know? And if it is dependent on certain things in certain areas, and you have like a Bigfoot hotspot, maybe that's because that's what the recipe provided is able to make you. If you're in Stearns, Kentucky, well, guess what? There's just the right amount of this type of plant in the area, this type of soil, and people that live there eat their eggs on Sunday and their bacon on Monday, and that makes Bigfoot. Like, I don't know what it is, but that's kind of what I'm trying to work my way through. And I think, if we're able to somehow come up with whatever this recipe is, we could not only predict paranormal activity, but we could possibly, create it.
Well, um, honestly, I just need to connect you with Mr. Kang. He would give you a lot of insight into your searches. Um, I don't know, man. Like, I always connect back to like, we can only see in the third dimension, but we're probably living in the sixth dimension and we're all
Yeah,
on the same plane. And unfortunately, in other places, like the energy levels aren't as balanced. And so they pop in and out, you know, kind
sure.
of
I
like,
mean, it's possible.
kind of like
Yep.
radio waves do. They bounce in and out. And that's probably what's happening. I like to think maybe that's part of it. And then, maybe we just don't even fucking know like what we're doing
Well, we
here, who
definitely
we are.
don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
we definitely.
I mean, we have a baseline understanding. It's like we're creatures, we were created from stardust, we're organic, we decay, we grow. And like I think that's like probably the most solid baseline we can understand of ourselves, but like where we're going or like where all this is projecting towards, like I have no clue. But I will say when we were recording Penny Roll, me and Nathan and Darian and I think Kyle was there, but I can't remember. But anyways, we were deep in the shit one night about manifestation, and I was recording for my show, Strange Appalachia, and dude, we just got into talking about like all this like paranormal stuff. Um, well, I guess there was two nights because I said we were recording for Penny Roll, which we talked about that night, and then I came back. Anyway, doesn't matter. We got into talking about like how shit like is maybe just all connecting and like it's a cycle of like our touching it and interacting it is feeding the beast and it's just feeding back to us and like slowly but surely if enough people get interested and are feeding the beast at like even bigger shit will happen. And I honestly think that's almost what happened. Like if you look at like what Hellier did to the
Oh, yeah.
paranormal community, like even people that weren't, I wasn't into it that much, but it drew me in even further.
Yeah.
Uh, it put more interest into this thing, this being whatever it is. And then the government, a year later is like, hey, how you doing? Here's some pictures of UFOs, and this is a
Right.
naughty video of a UFO, and you're like, what the fuck?
Right. The thing that really blew my mind was how little people cared.
Dude, that
We've
blew my mind too. I told my grandma,
we've
I
been
was like, did you see there was
screaming
UFOs on the news? She was like, that's fake.
we've been screaming for government disclosure for decades. And they finally come out and they're like, here's this thing, we don't know what it is. It
Yeah,
fits the description of a UFO, and no one gave a shit. Like, just
I know,
crickets.
dude. It was fucking bonkers. But I think that's why, like, they did it during the pandemic. It's because everybody was already in chaos, anyways. They had so much other, like, political agenda shit and, like,
Yeah.
the country tearing itself apart over the second civil rights movement for, like, that's why I think they did it then. They were like, look, nobody's paying attention. UFO, 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 UFO.
I don't got time for UFOs. I can't find toilet paper anywhere. God, that sucked. That was a bad time.
That's funny as fuck, dude. That was a good one. Yeah.
Like, yeah, there was definitely, and there still is, just chaos. I mean, we're seeing our entire society change before our eyes right now. People are
Crazy.
refusing to go to work, you know,
Yeah.
and there's gonna be something huge is going to come out of this, whether it's directly or indirectly. There's going to be a society shift, and I think we're seeing a change in classism. We're going to see a change in poverty, and we're going to see a change in the ultra rich. And it's either going to be really good or really bad, and I don't know which one it's going to be, but it's going to be
Well,
something big.
I'm a firm believer in the fact that history always repeats itself.
Yeah.
And I reckon, every time that the higher classes always tried to escape us and get away, we bring them right the fuck down, you know.
Yeah.
And I
And they
think
build
that's,
themselves back up again.
yeah. And I think that's going to happen. And, when in 2019, man, I was in the woods by the lake listening to a bluegrass band and a rock band on an old barn that they built a stage out of in the middle of the fucking woods. Like, it felt like the 1960s. Like, if I were, that old, that's kind of what, it would have felt like. Nobody was on their cell phones. As kids running around, people just having a good fucking time. And like that 2019 really felt like a trip back, especially in the Appalachian region, like especially in Kentucky and in my area, we've had a boom in our
Yeah.
society and like how I don't know, everything's changed. Like it's crazy. So much has changed so quick that it just feels like that. It's like another hippie movement. And no offense to hippies, I love
Definitely.
y'all.
Yeah, no, I mean, look at the legalization of marijuana almost widespread now across the United States.
Except in
And
Kentucky.
well,
The fuck.
you're gonna do what you're gonna do in Kentucky anyway. Like,
Oh well, yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I'll tell you this much: it grows the best in Kentucky. Okay, the hell with that California shit.
there are dozens of Mexican drug cartels that will disagree with you, sir.
No, no, there's a reason they'll throw you in prison for life around here for growing the stem.
Yeah. No,
But
but yeah, there's definitely parallels to that whole peace, love, drugs movement for sure.
well, yeah,
For sure.
that was the feeling I was getting, and like this whole like everything thrown in with like the paranormal investigation, the upset, and everything, and then Nathan like just keeps uncovering like all this Watergate scandal shit, dude. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden now, into 2021 with how the government's being and like people not going to work and inflation, I'm like, fuck, it's the 70s already. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
every
And
it's
I don't know.
ridiculous. Like
I don't know what's gonna happen.
well, I'm leading to something here. It's like all this inflation and everything, and like the civil upset and stuff. Like eventually, people are gonna be like, "Look, we've had enough. You can have whatever the fuck you want. Like, just get out of my face." And then you always have the fighting side of things where nobody's gonna quit no matter what, and then you have the crying side of things where everybody's gonna cry about something no matter what it is. But right now, you got a wage that hasn't changed nationwide since pretty much the 90s.
Yeah.
um People don't want to work their whole fucking lives away, especially um my generation. We're like, that was the point. Yeah, I get it. That's how grandma and dad and everybody grew up. It was like, hey, you go get a job. If you work 60 years, then you can retire and spend the last 12 years living your life. Like,
Maybe.
yeah, maybe. But unfortunately, we put cancerous products in everything, and you're not gonna make it that way.
Right.
I
Unless you work for a drug company.
Yeah. But yeah, cocaine cowboys. um Anyways, yeah, I think that, this whole generation is just tired of that part. And I've been reading this interesting book. It's called A Hunter Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century. And it's talking about pretty much everything, but one thing it sums up is like there's a extreme disconnect because of the advance in technology that we've had since, the 50s, which I also think is related to aliens. Um, yeah, it's just me. But anyways, there's this extreme jump within the past 100 years in technology for us as humans that never happened thousands of years prior to that. And they're talking about how um people have gas station problems with wheat and gluten and all this stuff, and it's not necessarily of the food itself. It's because it's how we're growing the food and what we're fertilizing and fighting pests with the food and stuff. And this is why we're having all these issues in the human bodies these days and stuff. And your ancestors ate wheat for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years since the Garden of Eden. Since God put Adam and Eve down, was like, here's wheat, here's apples, and don't eat that one. They've been eating wheat. And now, all of a sudden, just recently, we're having an issue with that. It's like nothing is adding up in our technology. And me and you talking like this versus me driving up to you and speaking to you in person, it's changing so quickly that our evolution isn't able to catch up with it. And
Yeah.
so, I think that's part of the problem. Granted, I'm a big user of the technology. Like I love searching the web and watching videos, anytime I can, and hitting somebody up from states or countries away. Like I love that. That's awesome innovation. And I love being able to go out here, and use my phone to add up how many, studs I'm going to need to frame this wall or whatever, just right in my pocket without having to pull out a notebook.
Yeah.
And the integration is great. And with the advance in space technology and stuff, like commercial companies doing space flight to make it cheaper for governments to utilize scientific data, that's incredible too. But at the same time, in this book also it talks about you don't know your fucking neighbors no more, man. You know what I mean? You're not talking to them. You ain't asking for a cup of sugar, nothing like that. There's a extreme social disconnect from the natural world, and I think eventually that, if we don't strafe away from it, is going to inevitably lead to our downfall. We're not we're saying we have all these issues and all these problems in our country and with our species and stuff, but at the same time, we're strafing away from what makes us human in the first place. And I think that's
Oh,
something we
yeah.
have to focus on. And maybe that's what's, this paranormal thing is drawing us to the woods and the caves for. Maybe it's just a natural instinct deep down inside our primal ape minds. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that it's one of those feel good things that you think about, like maybe that's what this is all for, right? Like
Yeah.
we're reconnecting with, how our society had been for so long that we've
Well,
strayed away from.
that's probably the best thought for me. And I love reading ancient Greek, history and their tales and stuff because it's so mystical. It's so beyond this world. And there's something so connecting about that because they were one of the first democratic, governments that established a society, outside of Mesopotamia and that we know of. It could have been anywhere in the world, beforehand,
Sure.
but it's just it's alluring and attractive, and the tales are so beyond fairy tales. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the place that gods descended from and titans planted their seeds,
Yeah.
that's incredible history. And but it's also the thing about dragons. There's a portrait of a dragon being slain everywhere in the country before they even talk to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. That's weird, right? There's a lot of
Yeah,
things like that, and they're finding these these artifacts, that don't belong in places, that have been there for way too long, and
yeah.
it's interesting. There's a lot more that we don't know, I feel like, than we do, especially when you go back to, like, the Mayans and the Aztec and all of these races of people, if you want to say races, these societies that disappeared. Like they're uncovering ruins almost every day in South America right now, and God knows what's in there that's left behind, and we'll never know what took place there. We can
Yeah.
sit and theorize all day, well, this is where they stored their jam, like we don't know. We have no idea what these people were doing. Christ,
Nah.
if the world ended tomorrow and 1,000 years from now, some intelligent squid came into this studio, what was left behind, and they look around and they're like, well, all right, hold on. They're like, well, there's all this crazy stuff, and there's this technology that's ancient that they thought was top of the line. But there's this box of whole kernel
Sweet
sweet
corn.
corn. And it's not. But it's full of I bought a whole bunch of old issues of Fate magazine
Oh, I've seen
from
those. You got them in
yeah,
the corn
right.
box?
I haven't opened them yet because I'm saving it for Patreon, but they shipped them in a damn corn box. Like, so
They're
my
like,
point with that was they're going to see that and they'll be like, well, they read here, they did some sort of broadcasting here, and they ate this corn here. So we think this was some sort of primitive church. And, what the hell? They have no idea what I'm doing. I'm sitting out here scratching my ass and looking at old books and talking to dudes from all over the world. Like, there ain't no church here. God don't live here, boy. And, like, we have no idea what these people were doing, and
yeah.
it's fun to sit and be like, well, yeah, this is their sacrificial altar where they killed people in the name of the sun god Ra and yada yada yada. And we don't know. We have,
It was well, I've read Graham Hancock's book, Fingerprints of the Gods, and it's incredibly detailed. And I think their beliefs in South America, from what he's told me about, or I've read, yeah, he's told me. I talked to him.
yeah, right.
What I understand from his writings is that the Olmecs and the Aztecs believed that the sun god, was the one that damned us, and the water god damned us before. And of course, this ties into the Christian Bible about God doing, each and every one of those. Like at first, he scorched and burned the earth, and then brought water and land and light, and then he flooded it because there was so much peril in the world. And the Aztecs and the Olmecs have written about the same things, and these are sophisticated societies, and these are etched into walls and stuff. But at the same time, he talks about like these giant, global apocalypses, like complete annihilation, extinction events. And that shit scares the fuck out of me, just to mark that on the board. Like I
Well, you're
always
living in
think
one
about
right now, man. Like, you're okay.
fuck. Like, but he talks about like these global extinction events and stuff like that. And he writes that the Aztecs sacrificed so many people during the summer solstice because the fifth sun, which we're living in now, was going to end. It was going to kill everything.
Hmm.
But because they made that sacrifice to the sun god, we still live under the fifth sun.
Yeah.
That shit's crazy. Um, but man, is it not interesting? Like we don't understand a fucking lick of it.
Oh,
But
no, not at all.
but I reckon, we got an understanding of what they thought. But like you were saying, there ain't no church here. You ain't gonna fight God here, boy. Like I'm sitting on my ass right now drinking beer, Like what
Yeah.
was he doing there? I think I think at times like the mainstreams medias and stuff like that, and mainstream science even, uh they're looking to please more than they are to inform. And then there's actual people out there doing actual research that's going to lead to something, some type of event, or point us in a direction that's like, look, this is what we are, okay? And this is where we've been. And if we don't do this and we don't do that, then we're going to go fucking here. But if we do this and we can do this, then we can go here and continue to evolve as a species. And I think I think we need to focus on the things that we can handle now to where we can at least, propel us up. And there's tons of problems in the world because, you have all kinds of stubborn people that are like, that's the way daddy did it and that's the way we're going to do it. But
Well, it doesn't help when the members, I don't want to get super political here, but when the members of the ruling class, so to speak, of the modern, free society that is America, are all, over 70 years old, and they're the ones that are being like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how much money I'm getting for it, and I'm going to keep doing it. And you're going to keep letting me do it because I'm never going to sign a law that says I can't keep doing it,
yeah.
and you have to wait until I die, and this 60-year-old guy um, you know, as great as our country has been and is, it is not flawless. And the fact that we have somehow, by whatever reason, whatever means, positioned ourselves to feel like at least we're the leaders of the world in every aspect, even though we're really not. We have made some piss poor decisions, and we just keep making them. Like you said, history just keeps repeating itself, and eventually the well's going to run dry. And the people who are trying to get, like you said, we need to do this, we need to do this, and we'll be here. Those people are getting drugged through the mud for being nuts because everybody's brainwashed by the damn news that's 24/7 now, that they're so pit against each other. They would rather be right and wrong than to admit that we have a problem.
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
a biggest issue.
It is a big issue. It's ego that gets in the way of progression
Oh
sometimes.
yeah.
Um, I always like to say, and this is something an idea I come up with due to the research and just the study of history that I've done, is that when we cracked the atom, we figured out so much, you know, in the 40s when we first released the first atomic bomb and we made an extraordinary leap in science,
Oh yeah.
an absolutely extraordinary leap in science. I think that it led us to where we're at now. It advanced so fast. That's why you always hear like everybody saying, "I like the old ways," or "I wish it were the old ways." It's because it advanced so fast for them. They didn't know how to keep up with it. So I'll just ignore it. It ain't there. It's not a fucking thing.
Yeah.
We'll just do it how we've always done it, and that's how it's gonna be. And we've led to this part where we're like digging up, you know, billion-year-old soil samples and burning them back into the atmosphere. Or it's happening all around the world. It's not just America. It's not just a Republican Democrat thing. It's all around
No.
the world. It's affecting us all. The oceans are polluted and the plankton are dying and the fish can't breathe. Like
Yeah.
we're over hunting, overfishing because technology is leading us further and further from the natural world.
Yeah.
And maybe like I bring back to like maybe this supernatural or this you know extra natural thing is that's primal inside every single one of us because we all come from the same first evolution of human beings. Maybe it's saying like, "Hey, that's not right. You're gonna kill us all. Better not do
Understand.
that."
Yeah.
You know,
No, for sure.
I don't know, man. It's weird, but I could talk about that subject all night long. It's because I think different than a lot of people I know, but I also have a good group of friends that also think the same way I do. But this, like, I'll stay up till like 3 a.m. Like, maybe that's what that fucking is,
You've got
I'm
the yarn between the thumbtacks and connecting all the dots. Yeah.
yeah, no, see, I'm not that organized, man. That's why I talk to guys like you. I'm just
Oh,
like over here.
you snowed.
I'm over here pitching balls to the infield, like they might catch it. They might catch it. but but I think it is important, uh, n- for fun and also for like our own personal science, just to keep digging into things and try to understand them. And that's part of why like I enjoy the paranormal. And And I enjoy talking to people like you because you understand it more than I do, and you can explain
I don't
more
know
to
about
me.
that.
I don't know, man. I think you do. I mean, you're definitely more into it than I am. Like, um, paranormal things have always happened to me, but I never paid them no attention. As like
Yeah.
I never, I either considered it, a nightmare or like that's a ghost. Don't scare me. you
Right.
know,
Yeah. The
but
ego again, right?
yeah, but I would love for me and you to meet up and do some investigations sometime in the future.
Oh yeah.
Um, maybe even work hard together and release something together. That'd be a lot
Oh,
of
that'd be
fun.
sure. For sure.
Um, yeah, I was just saying. Have you so to go back to the main point? With Ed Orpha, has that been the only place in Kentucky that you've ever like investigated for for yourself, like for the paranormal patio, and for you?
Oh, I mean, I would argue this is the first investigation period that I
Oh,
had
really?
ever done, at least on this type of scale. I mean, whenever I saw that map and it said Smithland, and I was like, "Holy shit, there's something to this." I reached out to Marco Visconti, who's
Yeah.
yeah, whatever he is, he's fucking brilliant, right? And so I told him the story, and I was like, "What do you think about this? Like, what do I need to do?" He's like, "Well, that's not something that happens to people generally, so I think maybe if you feel drawn to it, you should keep going." And I was like, "All right." And then Pennyroyal came out in on the second playthrough, and the last episode, you know, they mentioned Crowley coming through Kentucky and his family being in Livingston County, which is happens to be where Smithland is. And it's like, oh, here's another ding, 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 ding. Like, I need to be looking into this. And when Nathan emailed me about coming on my show to promote Pennyroyal when I was about to drop or when it just came out or whichever, I was like, man, I'm gonna ask these guys about it because maybe they know more and they can point me in some directions that I haven't thought of.
Yeah.
And and it did. And it did.
That's
So
good.
it kind of snowballed from there. I mean, this has only been, it was 2019. So I mean, we're in this 3-year window, and I spent a solid year reading and tracking things down and looking into, family trees and cemeteries and all this stuff and locations and finding these places. And I thought it was also important when I started the documentary that I make that trip to Somerset that I made back in March because I feel like I would have never gotten to where I am with it without Nathan and what information he gave me and was able to well, we manifested the shit 24 hours after we talked because this is bizarre. Like, the conversation ended. I was talking to Darian and Nathan. Kyle was in, I think he was when he was in Sedona. I think
Oh
is when
yeah.
that interview happened. And I was like, man, if I hear anything weird about Livingston County, I'll send it to you. And he's like, if I find anything weird about Livingston County, I'll send it to you. This was a Friday night. Saturday morning, I'm going through Twitter, and we have this mutual friend on Twitter, I guess. We didn't know that we did, and it did never seem like a relevant thing. But it was another podcaster, and I'm looking through, and they had made a post about Livingston County, Kentucky, and the goat man of Livingston County, Kentucky. And I'm like, what the fuck? The next day, not even 24 hours, like 12 hours maybe. And I
Synchronicities.
screenshotted it, went to Facebook Messenger, opened up Nathan's little chat thing, and I see that he's typing. And I start typing. I'm like, man, I found something about Livingston County. And there's like this delay. And I imagine it's him hitting the backspace a bunch of times. He's like, I did too. And I said, well, what did you find? He's like, you go first. I said, how about the goat man of Livingston County? He's like, holy shit, I just read that. And so we dug into that like immediately, and it was important to me to incorporate Somerset. And I came down. I plan to meet up with you, plan to meet up with Kevin and Jessica, plan to meet up with Kyle and Nathan and Darian and do all this stuff. And of course, we didn't get to meet up, but we definitely will. I am planning on trying to be there for the Pennyroyal season 2 release party
Ah,
if it happens.
please come just drink a beer with me.
Oh, yeah, hell yeah. And so, but Kevin and Jessica had been on my show, and this is another weird thing. This was after Pennyroyal. I had been planning to come down. Kevin and Jessica come on my show, and they start telling me, and I didn't even know they were fucking from Kentucky
Oh,
at
really?
all. I reached
You
out to
did?
them because no, there was a
Huh.
they did this mushroom mine thing
Yeah, the
on YouTube.
mushroom mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is really cool. I'd like to talk to these people. So I sent them an email and they're like, yeah, we'll come on your show. So we set it
Oh,
up and it was like 2 months out. And I was like, great. I can't wait to talk to these guys about this mushroom cave. And in
wow.
the meantime, they're linking up with Dan Dutton and they're filming all this shit with
Oh,
him.
yeah, all
I'm
kinds of
like,
stuff.
that's
Yeah.
really weird that they're doing all this stuff in Somerset. That's bizarre. So comes time for the interview, and I'm like, hey, so you're spending a lot of time with Dan Dutton? They're like, yeah, well, we're up in Lexington. It's not that far. It's 45 minutes, whatever. And I'm like, holy shit. I didn't even know you were from there. He's like, oh yeah, we know all the penny roll guys and we know all this stuff. And I'm like, well, what the fuck?
Yep.
And then they're like, oh, by the way, outside of Somerset, there's this hill where we found this triangle structure and we had this crazy experience. And I'm like, I'm going there in 2 weeks. Like, meet up with me and take me to it. I want to see this shit.
You know
And
what's
so,
funny?
yeah,
I met Jessica and Kevin, and of course, you might not know it, but Kevin's a mountain boy from
oh, yeah, yeah,
deep in the heart, and Jessica, she's up there from horse country. Uh, I met them in 2019 when I was trying to tell Nathan about my goblin story. He was like, don't tell me all of it. He was like, I'll have you on my podcast. He's like, it's this thing coming out, it's not, maybe not going to be that big, but anyways. And he was like, come up and tell it. So I was like, okay, when you want me to come over? He's like, come over next Monday or something like that. And I went over there, and Kyle is there, and Darian's there, and Nathan's there, and Kyle's like, hey, this is my friend, Kevin and Jessica. They come down from Lexington. And you care if they sit in and listen to your story? I was like, no, the more the merrier. And so I met them that night. The first time I ever met them, I was telling them about my goblin story, and Kevin's like, "That's fucking crazy! Like, that's insane! You know that, right?" And so me and Kevin have been just spitballing ideas about film and like all kinds of stuff for a couple of years now, and
yeah.
I consider them real good friends of mine.
Oh,
I
they're
love them
great
to death.
people. They're great
And
people.
but yeah, that's funny that you didn't know they was even from
No
Kentucky.
idea. So that blew my mind. I was like, well, when we get done with this interview, I got to tell you this story, see what you think about it. And they're like, oh, I can't wait to hear it. I told them everything I told you. And they're like, holy shit. So you're coming down here to look into that? I'm like, yeah. And if you're free, I'd like to meet up with you down there too. And you can show me this spot. So I included that in my footage. I filmed, we did an Estes method session up on this hill under the triangle structure.
Yeah,
And I still haven't watched it all. Uh, I watched like 10 minutes of it with my Patreon last Saturday. We did like a
yeah.
little viewing, and uh, there's a lot that happened, a lot to take in, and it's just going to kind of close it out. Uh, the documentary is called Surface Below or Before Me, My Altar. And I got that name from, I took this entire book, put it on Google, found the most repeated word, and of course it's like the, he, I, it, whatever. And
Right.
then the first word that popped out was surface, and I was like, well,
That's
that's
fucking weird.
perfect, perfect name for this, right? And so I took surface, put it into the NAEQ cipher made popular by Alan Greenfield, the secret cipher of the Euphonauts, and yeah, and it returned. One of the returns was "Before Me, My Altar," and I was like, "Well, that's a perfect little tagline." And
Oh yeah.
so I knew that going in, and I wanted to incorporate some sort of magical thing into the story. And Kevin, Jessica, and I, they picked me up at my hotel, So I got into a car with two complete strangers from a different state, drove out to the
Nothing
middle of
mysterious
nowhere,
about
Kentucky, put my life in danger. No, well, kind of, because Jessica was driving. That's a
it. Well,
joke.
I was going to take you into Satan's cave, so.
Which, yeah, I probably would have died. So, I've lost 75 pounds this
You
year,
look good,
and
man.
thank you. I started losing weight like right when I came down, and I probably wouldn't have made it, and maybe by the time it warms back up, I might be able to make it. Anyway, so we go out there, and I'm like, are you guys cool with doing a little candle magic, doing a little communion ritual, breaking bread with whatever's here, whether it's Pan, whether it's a ghost, whether it's Bigfoot, whatever this thing is. And Jessica's eyes like lit up because I didn't know she was into magic at all. And she told me later, like she sent me a message. She's like, it's so much fun when someone breaks out all their witchy shit and it's not just me. And I was like, yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah, she's
So
witchy.
she's great. And yeah, we did this thing up there. I didn't film the ritual stuff because it's one of those personal things, like it happened and that's it. But we did film the Estes method up there, and I'm going to close out the documentary with that. And I think it's a good way to wrap it up, just
Hell
because
yeah.
you know it's actually going to start with my first appearance on Pennyroyal's Liminal Lodge. When they brought me in back in, I don't remember if it was like December or something like that. One of
Yeah.
the early ones.
Yeah, the real early ones. That's the one I was on. Was like episode 7 or something.
Yeah, you were there. That's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I talked to you, and you were like,
Yeah, that's right.
"Next time
Yeah.
you come down, let me
That's the
know. I'll take you to any cave you want."
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why you contacted me and came down here in the
Yeah, yeah,
first place.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Fuck, that was
Yeah,
it, dude.
full circle, man. Full circle.
Ah, goddamn, look at that. Well, listen,
Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap it up. I have one more question for you because I just gotta know
All
what,
right.
well, what's your focus now? Like, what brought you into it? And like right now, like you said, this is the beginning for you, pretty much. What made you start the Paranormal Patio? Like, why do you podcast and like why do you research?
Yeah. So I had, well, to go way back, before my son was born, I worked at our local radio station part time, a couple
Oh,
days
that's
a week.
cool as fuck, man.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it. I
Yeah,
didn't enjoy the music I had to play and the early Sunday morning church services I had to play and
eh,
all this shit.
part of it.
But I liked talking, and
Yeah.
so shortly after that, a friend of mine's like, "Hey, there's this thing that's kind of taken off. It's called live streaming, where it's kind of like the Late Show, but just for anybody that wants to do it." He's like, "Would you be interested in doing something like that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So we tried it out, and this is infancy, like streaming video. And he says, "This is fun. Let's keep doing it." And I'm like, "All right, great. I'm on board." And then his computer died, and so
Ah,
we stopped. A couple of years after that, me and a couple of my friends decided we were going to do this new podcast thing. Like, yeah, just it'll be fun. We'll just hang out, talk about whatever we want.
right.
A
Yeah.
couple of times we got into paranormal stuff, and I had forgotten how much fun I had talking about it. Growing up as a kid, it was one of those things that no one here talks about it really because we're really conservative, and it's not something you want to get caught with coming out of your mouth. And so talking about some of that stuff with my friend John, I enjoyed those the best. And whenever work got in our way and schedules got in our way, we stopped doing that show. Um, so that all went away and I had nothing. Then I watched Hellier, and Hellier pretty much changed everything for me because it's a great documentary series.
It
I
is
believe
good.
everybody there is genuine. And one of the things was in season 2, they introduced Lonnie Scott, the hypnotist, right? And it says on the screen, Mattoon, Illinois. And I'm like, holy fuck, that
Is
is
that where
like,
you live? Is Mattoon?
no, but it's 40 minutes away,
I
45
drive
minutes.
through Mattoon.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, when I
That's
go
cool.
up to do my job in
Yeah.
Arthur, Illinois, I drive through
Yeah. Yeah.
Mattoon.
Yeah. Sure. Well, I'm like, I wonder if this Lonnie Scott dude's online, like, surely he is. Well, I look him up, and he's a podcaster. And I'm like,
Oh, really?
that's cool. Yeah, weird web radio.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
And so like I added him on Facebook or whatever, and I was just like, I saw you on Hellier. I'm gonna check out your show. We just little thing.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks later, he made a post like, "Hey, does anybody do graphic design? And I'm
You
looking for
do,
a
don't you?
yeah, right. I'm looking for
Yeah.
a T-shirt or something." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it. You know, we can. I don't want any money because I'm not that good, but like, maybe we can trade. For like a hypnosis session or something." He's like, "Oh, sure, no problem."
That's cool.
And yeah, we hit it off, and I don't know how many T-shirts I've come up with for him. Like at this point, dozens. And so I do all of his merch, a lot of his web graphics and stuff.
Shit.
And we connected there. And he made a post one day that said, this is like right at the start of the pandemic. He's like, people are trapped in their homes, people are losing their minds. If you have any type of a creative aspiration, now's the time to do it. And I was like, man, I really did enjoy that podcasting stuff.
Yeah.
So I hit up my friend John. I was like, hey, you want to try this podcasting thing again from a different angle and focus on paranormal stuff? He's like, yeah, you know, sure. So we started Paranormal Patio and right at the start of the pandemic. And eventually our schedules came into play again. And John's like, man, I'm working 6 and 7 days a week. I can't keep up. My mom is 100 years old. She's needing more and more help every day. I don't have the time. And I
Yeah.
said, that's fine, man. Anytime you're ready to come back, you let me know. And I started scheduling guests via Skype, and that's how the format of the show, how it is now, kind of came in. And right as I released Terror Raising Horror Week season one, last year, 2020, I started getting a lot more traffic. And I'd planned, since it was cold, and it's called Paranormal Patio because I started recording it in my patio outside,
Yeah.
that I'm going to take a break until spring, right? So then Nathan emails me and he's like, "Hey, would you be interested in letting us come on your show and talking about pennyroyal?" And I originally I was like, "Man, I'd love to, but I'm done for a little while. Like I'm going to take," and I sent that to him, and I thought about it and I thought about it and I thought about it, and I'm like,
It's
"Man,
like,
I
fuck
can't
it,
do
I'll
that."
do it.
Yeah, that's what happened. And I sat in my garage in November and it was freezing cold. I had a little space heater and I was like, yeah, I have to do this. I don't feel right not doing it. And because
Yeah.
of that, it led me into all this shit. So I spent the majority of the time from November until March extremely streamlined focused on this whole Smithland thing because of what happened to me and because of the Edidorpa stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like that chapter is closed. I don't know what my focus is going to be. I'm going to have to wait until I get the documentary out, but I don't feel drawn to it as much. I still go there. I've been there like 3 times since I first said I think I'm done with it. So know you never know what's going to come out of it.
True.
Uh, there's a lot that I'm going to miss about it if I stop, but I want to change focus to something else. I don't know what that is yet, and maybe it's trying to come up with more details on this recipe for the paranormal stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
figuring that out, and maybe it'll be something
That,
totally different that just falls in my lap again. But
that's pretty cool. The recipe for the paranormal. I like that, especially what you said about Stearns and stuff earlier. Um. Well, listen, man. I enjoy it. I enjoy your show. I didn't, until that night. You were like, I was like, I was almost joking, but I'll never joke. If I offer you something, it's real. Um. That night, I said, come on down. I'll show you any cave you want to see. I meant that, and you're gonna have to take me up on that one day. But I do enjoy
oh
your
yeah,
show, and I enjoy what you're doing, and I think we should, collaborate a little bit more because I honestly love podcasting, and like you said, it's hard to get to do. Like I don't know why it is, unless it's something you have a lot of free time to do, it'd probably be easy for somebody like that. But for me, it's extremely difficult. This is the fourth episode on my channel, but I have
yeah,
over like 1,200 views or more just
right,
in video alone, and people enjoy it. They enjoy listening to people just bullshit, and And I enjoy listening to people just bullshit as long as they don't sound, annoying and they actually have like
Yeah.
an aspect of something they're talking about. I enjoy it. And that's why I don't have a host. I got Mike, he works behind the screen like every time we do one of these. And
I need one of those guys. That's what I
yeah,
need.
Mike's my dude. He's the dude behind the camera there and the computer and makes everything streamlined for me. But
Next time you go up to Arthur, bring him with you and just drop him off. I want
he'll fucking stay. Illinois got weed, bro. You don't want him there.
no, but thanks for the kind words, man. Like I appreciate that that you follow the show, and I was glad to have you be a part of Hair Raising Horror Week this year, and we'll definitely have you on another time for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
kick Adam to the curve. I'll host it with you next time.
oh, my good friend Adam Talbot, man, I've made so many good friendships and met so many awesome people because of this
I
show.
imagine. Yeah,
Well, I don't know that I'd ever give it up at this point because,
can't.
like, I talk to Adam at least 3 times a week. Sometimes we get on Skype and we talk for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And, I've never met him in person, but we're talking all the time. I was talking to him today. He's putting up his Christmas decorations today, if you want to
That's
know.
too early. Tell him to take that shit down.
I was like, dude, my Halloween stuff is still up.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Me too.
yeah.
It is
So,
cool, man. That's how I've
uh,
met like a lot of people. Like some of the some of the guys I talk to regularly now or see regularly um are from the podcast. Like experiences I've had with people or just from being like, hey, I built a building in the back of my trailer. Like, want to come like do a podcast and talk shit with me? You know, like, I reckon so. But honestly, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day
oh,
and your
sure.
weekend. Come on here, man.
I loved it.
It wa-
It's a good
it was
time.
fun, and I want to do it again. I'd like to have you back on. I like to talk more. You know,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think we
Anytime.
share.
We'll
I
figure
think
it
we
out.
share a lot of the same interest. Anyways, I'm gonna give you this last few minutes to open people up that follow me and watch my stuff to wherever they can find you, and if they're interested, you put out stuff regularly on a season basis. So go
Yeah.
ahead.
Thanks, man. Yeah. First and foremost, the easiest place to find me is paranormalpatio.com. You'll have links to every episode, information from all the guests, and everything that you need to know, links to where you can listen to it. I'm on every podcast platform except for Apple. It's a personal decision. And if you listen to my
Me too.
episodes, you'll hear a single episode. I'm not a fan of the company. I don't like the way they do things, and I'll never submit my podcast there. It's just part
Yeah.
of it. I know I could get way more traffic if I did, and I'm okay with that because it's not for me. And if you do it, that's cool too.
Mm.
You can also, yeah, find me on Spotify is my favorite place to recommend people. Like Nathan always says, the way that they use their apps with the backgrounds, take the colors and everything, it looks really great. Um, Also, if you're interested in hanging out and doing a monthly live stream with me and all my good friends on Patreon, patreon.com/ beyond the patio. And you get early access to episodes, early access to merch, bonus content that you can't get anywhere else. And yeah, those live streams are fun. This month, I say we do one a month, right? So I have done 3 live streams for October. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I did the original, like the monthly Patreon one. I had a couple of psychics come to the studio,
That's
and
pretty
then
cool.
I did a live stream, which wasn't for Patreon. It was for everything to kick out Hair Raising Horror Week off, right? Had Kiki Dombrowski on. And then I did a live stream last weekend to close Hair Raising Horror Week for the Patreon people. So they got 3 this time. You never know what I'm going to do, but you'll always have at least one, right? And yeah, coming out with this, I fired up a spirit box and we tried to connect with ultra terrestrials last Saturday. And you
Oh,
never
that's
know.
awesome,
Good stuff. Yeah, thanks again though for having me, man. I'm glad this
dude.
worked out.
I appreciate it. Just stick around for a minute.
Yeah, sure.
I got something to tell you. Anyways, yeah, man. Jason Andrews, everybody. Round of
Paranormal Patio,
applause.
guys. Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. Can't wait to meet up.
Hell yeah, man. All right.